My stepfather didn't just steal my $14,200 bonus, he threw a party to celebrate how well he was providing for us with it. I watched Ray swirl his scotch, bragging to our neighbors, while I stared at the zero balance on my phone. He banked on my silence, assuming I would swallow the loss to keep the peace. He didn't realize that while he was performing, I was already printing the receipts. The notification from Crestmore Clinical Solutions arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, a silent digital ping that cut through the sterile hum of the open-plan office. I stared at the screen, my coffee cup suspended halfway to my mouth. The subject line was standard corporate phrasing, compensation review and performance adjustment, but the attachment held a number that made my breath hitch in my throat. $14,200. It was not a fortune to the partners in the corner offices, but for me, Lucy Price, 33 years old, and drowning in the slow, suffocating tide of compound interest. It was oxygen. It was the reset button I had been clawing toward for 5 years. I sat back in my ergonomic chair, the fabric rough against my blouse, and did the mental math that had become my constant background noise. I could zero out the high-interest credit card I had used to fix my transmission last winter. I could kill the remaining balance on the private student loan that had been haunting my credit score since graduation. I would still have enough left over to put $3,000 into a savings account that I would not touch, for the first time since I moved back to Briar Glen. I would not be living paycheck to paycheck. I would be solvent. I closed my eyes for a second, letting the relief wash over me. It felt physical, like a heavy coat sliding off my shoulders. I printed the confirmation, folded the paper twice, and tucked it into my purse. I wanted to hold it. I wanted to feel the physical proof that I had done a good job, that I was valued, and that I was finally going to be okay. The drive home to Briar Glen usually felt like a retreat into grayscale. It was a perfectly manicured Midwestern suburb where the lawns were aggressive in their greenness and the silence was heavy with things people did not say. I had moved back in with my mother and stepfather, Ray Halston, 18 months ago. It was supposed to be a temporary measure, a strategic retreat to save money on rent after my rent in the city hiked up by 40%. As I pulled into the driveway, the house looked the same as always, beige siding, dark shutters, the grass cut to a military precision that Ray prided himself on. Ray was standing in the open garage door, wiping his hands on a rag. He watched my car pull in with that proprietary gaze of his, like he was inspecting a piece of inventory. I got out, clutching my purse. "Hey, Ray," I said. He nodded, tossing the rag onto his workbench. "You are home late," he said. "Traffic?" "A little," I said. "I had a good day. Though, really good." He looked at me, his eyes narrowing slightly, assessing my mood. Ray considered himself a student of human behavior, though mostly he just liked to know where the leverage was. "Good is good," he said. "Your mom is in the kitchen. Dinner is in 10. I found Marianne at the stove, stirring something that smelled like paprika and onions. She looked tired, the lines around her mouth etched a little deeper than I remembered from the morning. When she saw me, her face brightened, that reflexive maternal smile that always made me feel a pang of guilt for being a grown woman living in her childhood bedroom. "Hi, honey," she said. "How was work?" I waited until we were all seated at the polished oak table, the silence broken only by the scrape of silverware. Ray sat at the head. Naturally, he liked to control the flow of conversation just as he liked to control the thermostat. "I got some news today," I said, keeping my voice steady, trying to suppress the grin that wanted to break through. Crestmore finalized the fiscal year bonuses. Ray stopped chewing. He placed his fork down precisely parallel to his knife. "Oh, I got the top tier," I said. "It is $14,200. Marianne gasped, her hands flying to her cheeks. "Oh, Lucy, that is wonderful. I am so proud of you." Ray leaned back, crossing his arms over his chest. He nodded slowly, an expression of serious contemplation on his face. "That is a solid number," he said. "Taxes will eat a chunk, of course, but that is a solid number. Good work. Lucy, thank you, I said. I am going to pay off the Visa and the Navient loan. I will finally be debt-free besides the federal loans. Ray made a humming sound, the kind a mechanic makes when he looks at a rusted undercarriage. He picked up his water glass, swirled the ice, and took a long sip before setting it down. You know, he started, his voice dropping into that register he used when he was about to explain how the world really worked. You need to be smart about how you handle a lump sum like that. Banks can be funny about large deposits hitting accounts that do not usually see that kind of volume. I frowned. It is a payroll deposit. Ray, it is standard. Sure, he said, waving a hand dismissively. But you know how the payroll timing works. Sometimes it lags, and with the way we have the bills set up right now. Everything is timed to the day. This was the trap. Since I moved in, I contributed $1,200 a month to the household expenses. It was rent, effectively, but Ray preferred to call it my contribution. We had set up a joint account for this purpose, a single bucket where I deposited my share, and they drew from it for utilities, groceries, and the mortgage supplement. It was supposed to be for convenience. Here is the thing, Ray said, leaning forward, his elbows on the table. If you dump that into your personal account and then try to transfer your monthly contribution later, you might hit a daily transfer limit. Then the mortgage draw hits, and we are short. You do not want to bounce a payment because of a technicality. I would not bounce it. I said, I can write a check. Checks take days to clear, Ray said, shaking his head as if I were suggesting we pay in livestock. Look, we are a team here. The smartest play is to have them route the direct deposit into the joint account. It lands. It clears instantly because it is a verified account. And we are liquid. Then you transfer your portion out to your personal savings and pay your debts. It buffers the house account for a few days, keeps our average daily balance up for the tier rewards, and you still get your money. Win-win. I hesitated. The logic felt circular, a solution in search of a problem. I looked at my mother. Marianne was watching Ray, her expression unreadable. But when she turned to me, her eyes were soft, pleading. It does make sense. Lucy, she said gently, Ray is so good with these things. He just wants to make sure everything runs smooth. You know how stressed he gets about the dates lining up? It was not a command. It was a request for peace. If I said no, I was being difficult. I was implying I did not trust them. I was disrupting the fragile ecosystem of the house over a banking detail. It just feels like an extra step, I said weakly. It is a safety net, Ray corrected. Just for a few days. You transfer it out the second it clears. I'm just thinking about the credit score. We are refinancing soon, remember? We need the account activity to look robust. He smiled then, a tight, closed-mouth expression that was meant to be reassuring. Do not worry so much. Lucy, I am looking out for you. I looked at the pot roast on my plate. I looked at my mother's hopeful face. I told myself it was just a bank account. It was just a routing number. It was $14,200, and it was mine. And where it landed for 48 hours did not really matter. Okay, I said, I will update the routing in the portal tonight. Good girl, Ray said. He picked up his fork and stabbed a potato. Smart move. The money hit the account on a Friday. 3 weeks later, I woke up at 6 a.m, the gray light of dawn just starting to bleed through the blinds. I grabbed my phone from the nightstand, my heart doing a little anxious flutter. I opened the banking app, scanned my Face ID, and waited for the wheel to spin. There it was. The balance on the joint account, which usually hovered around $2,000, was sitting at $16,450. I stared at it. It was real. I got out of bed, feeling lighter than air. I showered, dressed for work, and went downstairs. Ray was already in the kitchen, making coffee. He was whistling, a rare sound. Morning? Sunshine, he said. Morning, I said. The bonus landed. He nodded, not turning away from the coffee maker. Saw that. Nice to see some black ink for a change. Huh? I'm going to transfer it out tomorrow morning. I said, I want to let it sit for 24 hours just to be safe. Like you said. Ray turned then, mug in hand. Take your time, Lucy. It is not going anywhere. Saturday is better anyway. Banking systems update overnight Friday. Less chance of a glitch. I went to work that day feeling like I was walking on a cloud. I mentally wrote the checks. I imagined the zero balance on the credit card statement. I treated myself to a latte instead of the free office sludge. Saturday morning. I slept in until 8. The house was quiet. Marianne was likely in the garden. Ray would be in the garage or running errands. I sat up in bed, stretched, and grabbed my phone to do the transfers. I had the account numbers for my student loan servicer written on a sticky note on my lamp base. I logged in. The wheel spun. The screen refreshed. Current balance. $840. I blinked. I wiped the screen with my thumb. Thinking it was a smudge, I pulled down to refresh. The little circle spun, mocking me. Current balance. $840. A cold prickle of sweat broke out on the back of my neck. My stomach dropped so hard I felt nauseous. I tapped the Transactions tab, my fingers trembling. There was the deposit from Crestmore, plus $14,200 on Friday. But immediately following it, starting late Friday night and continuing into the early hours of Saturday morning, was a cascade of transfers. Transfer to external account, $4,491. $3,000. Transfer to external account, $4,491. $2,500. Bill pay. Card member service, $1,800. Transfer to external account, $4,491. $4,000. Bill pay. T-Mobile, $400. Transfer to external account, $4,491. $2,000. The list went on, chipping away at the block of marble that was my future until only dust remained. I sat there, frozen, the phone warm in my hand. My mind tried to make sense of it. Maybe it was a glitch. Maybe the app was showing pending transactions that were not real. But the available balance was in bold, angry black text. I threw the covers off and marched downstairs. The house felt different now. Hostile. I found Ray in the living room. He was measuring the wall above the fireplace with a yellow tape measure, a pencil tucked behind his ear. Marianne was sitting on the sofa, flipping through a catalog, looking peaceful. "Ray," I said. He turned, the tape measure snapping back into its case with a sharp thwack. "Hey, you are up." I held up my phone. The screen was still glowing with the transaction history. "Where is my money?" Ray frowned. A performance of confusion that was just a shade too slow. "What do you mean?" "The bonus," I said, my voice rising despite my best efforts to keep it clamped down. "It was there yesterday. Now it is gone. There are transfers, thousands of dollars in transfers." Marianne looked up, alarmed. "Gone? What do you mean, gone?" Ray let out a short, airy chuckle. He waved a hand. "Oh, that. Relax. Lucy, I moved it where it needs to be." I stared at him. "You moved it?" "It is my money." "Ray, where did you move it?" "I shifted it to the high-yield holding account," he said, turning back to the wall and making a small pencil mark on the paint. "That joint account pays 0 interest. It is dead money sitting there. I moved it to the sweep account so it can earn a few points while we sort out the allocation." "Allocation?" I repeated the word like it was in a foreign language. "There is no allocation. I told you I was paying off my loans today, and you will," Ray said, his tone shifting to that of a parent explaining bedtime to a toddler. "But you do not need to do it this second. Rushing leads to mistakes. I consolidated the funds so we can look at the whole picture." He turned to Marianne. "By the way, hun, I think we can finally pull the trigger on that sunroom expansion. I was looking at the numbers this morning, and our liquidity is looking really strong." Marianne's eyes widened. "Really? We can afford it?" Ray puffed out his chest slightly. "I have been moving some things around, managing the cash flow. It is looking good. I think we are finally getting ahead." I felt like I was screaming, but I was standing perfectly still. "Ray," I said, cutting through their domestic fantasy, "I need that money back in the joint account. Now." Ray sighed. A heavy, dramatic exhalation. Lucy, do not be dramatic. It is Saturday. The banks are closed. The transfers need to settle. You can't just bounce money back and forth like a ping pong ball. It triggers flags. He walked over and patted me on the shoulder. His hand felt heavy and hot. Just relax. Enjoy your weekend. We will sit down and go over the budget on Monday or Tuesday. I am handling it. He walked past me toward the kitchen. Coffee is fresh, he called back. I looked at Marianne. She was looking at the catalog again, but her eyes were not moving. She was staring at a picture of a wicker settee. Mom, I said. She looked up, her expression tight. He says he is handling it. Lucy. You know, Ray, he is always moving money around to get the best rates. He took $14,000. Mom, he did not take it, she said, her voice thinning. He just moved it. He is trying to help us. He wants to build the sunroom. It adds value to the house. That helps all of us. I realized then that she was afraid. She was afraid of the conflict, afraid of the reality, afraid to contradict the man who had convinced her that he was the only thing standing between her and ruin. I turned and walked back upstairs. My legs felt numb. I went into my room and closed the door. I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. I needed to see this on a bigger screen. I logged into the bank website. The transactions were there, stark and undeniable. But when I clicked on the tab for transfers, intending to initiate a pull from whatever external account Ray had linked, the screen went gray. A red banner appeared at the top. Authorization required. I clicked Initiate Transfer. A pop-up window appeared. To complete this action, a secure access code has been sent to the primary mobile number ending in 8821. That was Ray's number. I tried to change the settings. Access restricted. Contact primary account holder. I tried to view the full details of the external account labeled 4491, masked for security. I sat back. The air leaving my lungs. He had locked me out. Not completely. He was too smart for that. He left me with view-only privileges on the major functions. I could see the wreckage, but I could not stop the fire. I stood up and paced the small room. My first instinct was to run downstairs and scream. I wanted to throw the laptop at him. I wanted to shake my mother until she woke up, but I stopped. I remembered the look on his face, the calm arrogance. Relax. I moved it where it needs to be. He was expecting a fight. He was expecting me to be emotional, to be the hysterical stepdaughter who didn't understand high finance. If I blew up now, he would use it. He would tell Marianne I was unstable. He would say I was ungrateful. He would gaslight me until I doubted my own math. I took a deep breath. I walked to the window. Down in the driveway, Ray was talking to Mr. Henderson from next door. Ray was leaning against his truck, arms crossed, laughing. I cracked the window open just an inch. Yeah. Finally getting the cash flow stabilized, I heard Ray say. His voice carried on the crisp morning air. You know how it is. You have to make the hard decisions to keep the ship afloat. But we are looking at doing the sunroom this month. I told Marianne. Why wait? I am providing. Might as well enjoy it. Mr. Henderson nodded, looking impressed. Good for you. Ray takes a strong hand. I am the reason the household is stable. I whispered to the glass. My money. I closed the window. I did not go back downstairs. Instead, I sat at my desk. I opened a new spreadsheet. I named it Timeline. I started typing. Date, May 12th. Event, notification of bonus. Date, May 12th. Event, Ray insists on joint account deposit. Date, June 2nd, Friday. Deposit clears, $14,200. Date, June 3rd, Saturday. Balance, $840. I took screenshots of every single screen on the bank website. I captured the transaction IDs. I captured the Halston Consulting label on one of the smaller transfers I had missed on the phone. I captured the timestamps. I saved them all to a cloud drive that was not linked to any family email. Then, I picked up my phone and dialed the number on the back of my debit card. Thank you for calling Lakewood Heritage Bank. For account balance. Press 1. I pressed 0. I pressed 0 again. Please hold for a representative. I waited for 12 minutes. I watched the clock on my wall tick. Finally, a human voice. Lakewood Heritage. This is Sarah. How can I help you? Hi, I said, keeping my voice low and flat. My name is Lucy Price. I am a joint holder on account ending in 442. I have a question about the security settings. One moment. Ms. Price? Let me verify you. We went through the security questions. Mother's maiden name, last deposit amount. Okay, you are verified. What can I do for you? I am trying to initiate a transfer. I said, but it is asking for a code sent to a number that is not mine, and I seem to be restricted from changing the notification settings. Is that normal for a joint account? Let me look at the profile. Sarah said, I heard the clicking of a keyboard. Okay. I see here that the account is set to dual authorization for external transfers over $500, and the primary administration rights are assigned to the profile initiated by Ray Halston. Was it always like that? I asked. Since we opened it? Hold on. Sarah said, no, it looks like there was a profile update. Let's see. On May 14th, 2 days after I told them about the bonus, the update changed the authorization hierarchy and added a new verified external link. Sarah continued, that was done via in-branch verification. So, to change it back, you would need both account holders present in a branch to remove the dual authorization, or the primary administrator can do it online. Sarah said, since you are listed as secondary on the administration profile, you can view, but you cannot override the primary security settings without his code. I closed my eyes. It was premeditated. He hadn't just reacted to the money landing. He had built a cage for it the moment he knew it was coming. Thank you. Sarah, I said, that is all I needed to know. Is there anything else? No. I said, not today. I hung up. I looked at the spreadsheet. I looked at the number. $14,200. If I went downstairs now and confronted him, he would say he did it for my own good. He would say he locked it to prevent me from spending it foolishly. He would say the external account was an investment vehicle. He would spin it until I was dizzy. He was acting like a man performing for an audience because he thought the audience was already sold on his script. He thought I was a supporting character who would just say her lines and exit stage left. I saved the spreadsheet. I closed the laptop. I stood up and walked to the mirror. My face was pale, but my eyes were dry. I was not going to cry. I was not going to yell. I was going to let him brag. I was going to let him dig the hole, and while he was busy looking at the neighbors, waiting for applause, I was going to figure out exactly where he buried my life. I unlocked my door and walked downstairs. Ray was back in the kitchen, pouring another cup of coffee. He smiled when he saw me. Feeling better? He asked. I forced the muscles in my face to move. I forced a smile that felt like glass shattering. Yeah, I lied. Just a headache. I'm sure you will figure the numbers out. Ray, you always do. He grinned, satisfied. That is the spirit. Don't you worry about a thing. I walked past him to the fridge, my heart beating a slow, cold rhythm against my ribs. Part 1 was over. The robbery was complete. Now came the work. The automatic doors of Lakewood Heritage Bank slid open with a soft exhale of compressed air, ushering me into a climate-controlled silence that felt like a sanctuary compared to the noise in my head. It was Monday, my lunch hour. I had told my supervisor I was running a personal errand, which was true, though the errand felt less like banking and more like gathering evidence for a crime scene. I clutched my purse against my side. Inside, my phone still held the screenshots from Saturday morning, the digital ghosts of my vanishing bonus. But digital screenshots felt flimsy. I needed paper. I needed the weight of official letterhead and the indifferent confirmation of a stranger. I took a ticket from the kiosk and sat in one of the faux leather chairs. The branch was quiet, smelling of carpet cleaner and old money. Across the lobby, a row of glass-walled offices stood like confessionals. I watched the bankers inside, nodding at customers, typing on keyboards, moving lives around with a click of a mouse. Number 42. A voice called. I stood up and walked toward the third desk on the left. The nameplate read, Tessa Wren, Personal Banking. She was a woman in her 40s with sharp glasses and a bob that looked like it required regular maintenance. She gave me a professional smile, the kind that didn't quite reach her eyes, but was polite enough to do the job. Hi, I said, sitting down. I am Lucy Price. I am a joint holder on an account here. I just wanted to get a printout of the transaction history for the last 60 days. Tessa typed my name into her terminal. ID, please? I handed over my driver's license. She inspected it, tapped a few keys, and studied the screen. Her reflection was visible in the monitor's back panel, a ghost floating over the data. Okay, Ms. Price, she said. I see the account here. The joint household checking ending in 442. You just want a standard transaction history? Yes, I said. I paused, then added the lie I had rehearsed in the car. We are doing some budget planning for the summer. I like to have the physical paper to mark up with a highlighter. It helps me see where the leaks are. Tessa nodded, her eyes scanning the screen. That is a smart way to do it. It is easy to miss things on the app. She hit a command, and the printer behind her whirred to life while it churned. She kept looking at the monitor, her brow furrowing slightly. She scrolled down, then scrolled back up. She clicked on a line item, then another. The printing stopped. Tessa didn't reach for the paper immediately. She looked at me, her professional mask slipping just a fraction. You mentioned looking for leaks, she said. Her voice was lower now, more conspiratorial. I leaned in. Is something wrong? I can print this. Obviously, she said. It is your account. But since you are here for budgeting, are you aware of the transfer structure that has been happening over the last week? I kept my face neutral. Structure? She turned the monitor slightly so I could see, though the numbers were small. See here? She said, pointing with a pen. On Friday the 2nd, you had a large deposit, $14,200. Yes, I said. My bonus. Right, Tessa said. But look at the activity immediately following it. It is not just withdrawals. It is a cycle. See this? 3,000 out to an external account. Then, 10 minutes later, $150 comes back in from that same external account. Then $2,500 out. Then $75 back in. Then $4,000 out. She looked at me. It creates a lot of noise in the ledger. If you're just glancing at the balance on a phone screen, or if you have notifications set for transactions over a certain amount. The incoming small transfers reset the daily activity flags in some older systems. It looks like normal churn, like money moving for bills or business expenses. But the net result is a rapid drain. My stomach twisted. Ray wasn't just stealing. He was camouflaging. He was kicking dirt over the hole as he dug it. Who is the external account? I asked. The app just masks it. Tessa hesitated. She tapped the screen. I can see the destination because it is a verified link in our system. It is an account at First National. The account name is Halston Consulting LLC. The name hung in the air between us. Halston Consulting LLC. I stared at her. Halston Consulting? You know it? She asked. I shook my head slowly. No, my stepfather's last name is Halston. Ray Halston. He is the other account holder, but I have never heard of a consulting company. He works in logistics management for a shipping fleet. Tessa's expression tightened. She pulled the papers from the printer and stapled them with a sharp crack. Well, she said, sliding the stack across the desk to me, I cannot give you information on the external account's ownership since it is at another institution, but I can confirm that this account, Halston Consulting LLC, was added as a verified transfer destination on May 14th. That requires dual authentication or an in-branch visit. May 14th, 2 days after I told him about the money. Thank you. Tessa, I said. I took the papers. My hands felt cold. Ms. Price, Tessa said as I stood up. She wasn't looking at her screen anymore. She was looking at me. If you didn't authorize these transfers, you have a window to dispute them. But since it is a joint account and the money went to an entity sharing the other account holder's name, it gets messy. The bank usually views joint account actions as mutually authorized unless proven otherwise. I know, I said. I am just budgeting right now. Be careful with your budget, she said softly. I walked out of the bank and into the blinding midday sun. The heat hit me like a physical blow, but I felt freezing. I sat in my car, the engine off, the stack of papers on the passenger seat beside me. Halston Consulting, LLC. Ray didn't have a consulting business. Ray had a job at a warehouse office where he managed truck schedules. He came home at 5:30. He watched the History Channel. He complained about the price of gas. He didn't consult. I replayed the last 3 weeks in my mind. The way his eyes had lit up when I mentioned the bonus at dinner. The way he had leaned back, calculating. That is a solid number, he had said. He hadn't been happy for me. He hadn't been thinking about my student loans or my credit card debt. He had been thinking that $14,200 was exactly enough to fund something he was hiding. And the question he had asked me, what is the exact net amount? It hadn't been for planning. It had been to ensure he didn't try to steal $15,000 when only $14,000 was available. He wanted to drain it to the dregs without triggering an overdraft fee that would alert me too soon. It felt predatory. It felt like watching a wolf gauge the distance to a lamb. Measuring the leap not out of hunger, but out of sport. I drove back to work in a daze. I sat at my desk and stared at spreadsheets that belonged to the company, but my mind was overlaying them with the transaction list on my passenger seat. 3,000 out, 150 in, 2,500 out. He was laundering the theft through a pattern of confusion. He thought I was too stupid to notice, or too intimidated to ask. That night, the driveway was full when I got home. A silver SUV I recognized belonged to the Hendersons, our neighbors from 2 doors down. I sat in my car for a moment, gripping the steering wheel. I wanted to turn around. I wanted to go to a motel, or to Nia's apartment, anywhere but inside that house, but I couldn't. Leaving now would look like surrender. It would look like guilt. I took a deep breath, put on my customer service smile, the one I used when clients screamed about insurance copays, and went inside. The house smelled of garlic and roasting meat. Ray was in the living room, holding a glass of red wine, laughing loudly at something Bill Henderson had said. Marianne was rushing between the kitchen and the dining room, carrying a salad bowl, her face flushed with the stress of hosting. "Lucy!" Ray boomed when he saw me. He opened his arms as if to welcome a dignitary. "Look who decided to join the party. Work hard, play hard. Right? Hi, Ray," I said. "Hi, Bill. Hi, Sharon." "Hey, Lucy," Bill said, lifting his beer. "We were just talking about your stepdad's golden touch. He says he is finally getting the portfolio balanced." I looked at Ray. He didn't blink. He smiled right at me, a challenge in his eyes. "Just making some strategic moves," Ray said, taking a sip of wine. "You have to stay liquid in this economy. You can't just let cash sit and rot. You have to put it to work. Is that so?" I said. My voice was steady. "Surprising me. And where are you putting it to work? Ray?" He waved a hand dismissively. "Oh, diversified streams, markets, bonds, some short-term equity plays. It is boring stuff. I don't want to bore the ladies with the details." Sharon Henderson giggled. "Oh, I am happy to be bored as long as the bills get paid. My Bill here wouldn't know a stock from a sock." Everyone laughed. I forced a small, tight sound from my throat that passed for a chuckle. I went into the kitchen to help my mother. Marianne looked up, relief washing over her face. "Oh, good. You are here," she whispered. "Can you grab the garlic bread from the oven?" Ray invited them over last minute. He is in such a mood today, high energy. He seems happy, I said, reaching for the oven mitts. "He is," she said. She lowered her voice. "He paid off the credit card today. Lucy. The one we were worried about. The balance was getting so high, and the interest was killing us. He said he moved some things around and just wiped it out. He is really taking care of us." I froze. the heat from the open oven blasting my face. He paid off his credit card with my student loan payment, and he was selling it to my mother as heroism. That is great. Mom, I said, pulling the bread out. The foil crinkled under my grip. I squeezed it hard, imagining it was Ray's neck. Dinner was an exercise in nausea. I sat across from Ray. I watched him eat lasagna. I watched him pour wine for Bill. I watched him expand in his chair, soaking up the admiration of the table. He told stories about navigating the market and making the hard calls. He used words like leverage and equity with the confidence of a man who actually understood them. Rather than a man who was running a shell game with his stepdaughter's savings, I said nothing. I ate small bites. I drank water. Whenever Ray looked at me, I offered a bland, empty expression. I was a mirror, reflecting nothing back but his own arrogance. At one point, he toasted, to family, he said, raising his glass high, and to having the resources to protect them, to family. The Hendersons echoed. Marianne beamed, touching Ray's arm. He patted her hand, his fingers lingering on her wrist like a shackle. After dinner, the Hendersons stayed for coffee. The conversation moved to the patio. I excused myself, claiming I had a report to finish for work. I didn't go to my room. I went to the laundry room, which shared a wall with the garage. I needed to switch a load of towels, or at least pretend to. As I opened the dryer, I heard a voice through the thin drywall. No, listen to me. It has to show seasoned funds. It was Ray. He was in the garage. I quietly closed the dryer door, but didn't latch it. I pressed my ear against the plaster. I know what the statement says. Ray hissed. His voice was different now. Gone was the jovial host. He sounded tight, desperate. I deposited the lump sum on Friday. It is sitting there. I need you to issue the pre-approval letter based on the current liquidity. A pause. Yeah. I know it is a new entity. That is the point. Halston Consulting is the vehicle for the income. Look, just keep it clean until the refinance goes through. I need the house appraisal to come in high. And I need the debt-to-income ratio to look like I am not drowning here. Another pause. Don't worry about the source. It is family money. It is authorized. Just get the paperwork ready. I stepped back, my heart hammering against my ribs. Refinance. Halston Consulting. Drowning. He wasn't investing it. He wasn't saving it. He was using my money to inflate his financial profile so he could secure a loan, probably a massive one, against the house. He was leveraging the only asset my mother actually owned. I heard the garage door handle turn. I quickly grabbed a basket of towels and pretended to be folding. Ray walked in. He stopped when he saw me. He was holding his cell phone tight in his right hand. His face was flushed, a sheen of sweat on his forehead. "What are you doing?" he snapped. I didn't flinch. "Laundry." "Ray, I live here. Remember?" He stared at me, his eyes darting to the wall I had been listening at, then back to my face. He forced a smile, but it looked like a rictus of pain. "Right, sorry. Just work stress, dealing with a vendor who can't count to 10. On a Monday night?" I asked. "During a dinner party?" "It never stops. Lucy, that is the burden of leadership. It never stops." He pushed past me into the kitchen, the smell of stale wine trailing behind him. The next morning, I called in late to work. I drove to a coffee shop 2 towns over and met Nia Calder. Nia and I had been friends since freshman year of college. She was a paralegal for a divorce attorney, which meant she had seen every variety of human deceit that involved money and marriage. She was the only person I trusted to tell me if I was crazy. I laid the bank printout on the small round table between our lattes. I told her everything: the bonus, the joint account pressure, the vanishing act, the Halston Consulting revelation, the conversation in the garage. Nia read the transaction list. She didn't look shocked. She looked grim. "This is classic," she said, tapping a manicured fingernail on the line showing the $3,000 transfer. "It is called layering. He is moving the money through a shell company to make it look like business income. He is trying to pump up his income verification for a loan, a refinance." I said. I heard him say it. "Right," Nia said. If he is trying to refinance the house, he needs to show he has cash reserves and a low debt-to-income ratio. By stealing your bonus and funneling it through this LLC, he turns a liability, or just someone else's cash, into an asset on his balance sheet. He is cooking the books, Lucy, and he is using your mother's house as the collateral. She looked at me, her dark eyes serious. You need to get out of that account. Today. I can't. I said, I checked. He has dual authorization on everything. If I try to pull the money back, he gets an alert. He will block it. Then you need to protect what is left of your identity. Nia said, if he is willing to steal cash, he is willing to steal credit. Have you checked your report? No. I said, check it. Now? I opened my laptop right there in the coffee shop. I logged into the credit monitoring site I hadn't looked at in 6 months. The wheel spun. The report loaded. My score had dropped 12 points. I scrolled down to inquiries. There. Dated 3 weeks ago, around the same time Ray started talking about family improvements, was a hard inquiry from Midwest Equity Lending. I didn't apply for a loan. I whispered, he did. Nia said, or he tried to. He probably listed you as a co-borrower or a guarantor without telling you. He has your social security number, doesn't he? From tax season? Yes. Nia sat back. Lucy, listen to me. This isn't a family squabble. This is identity theft. This is fraud. You need to lock everything down. Freeze your credit files. Experian, TransUnion, Equifax, all of them. Do it right now. I started typing. My fingers flying across the keys. I felt a cold rage settling in my chest, replacing the fear. What about the money? I asked. That is $14,000. Nia, I can't just walk away from it. You won't, she said, but you can't get it back by asking nicely. He has already spent it, or allocated it. You need leverage. You need to build a case so undeniable that when you drop the hammer, he can't wiggle out. You need to document every conversation, every text, every time he brags to a neighbor. She took a sip of her coffee. And you need to find out what your mom knows, because if he is refinancing the house, he needs her signature. I went home that evening with a knot in my stomach. The house was quiet. Ray was out, probably working late, which I now suspected meant moving money around to cover his tracks. I found Marianne in the sunroom, the room Ray claimed he was going to expand with his newfound wealth. She was reading a paperback, a cup of tea beside her. Hi, Mom, I said, sitting on the ottoman opposite her. Hey, sweetie, you are home early. I looked at her. She looked tired. There were circles under her eyes that the soft lighting couldn't hide. She loved Ray. I knew that. She loved the idea of Ray, the protector, the man who took charge so she didn't have to worry. Mom, I asked gently, can I ask you something? Sure. Has Ray asked you to sign any papers recently? Like, for the house? Marianne marked her page and set the book down. Well, yes, a few weeks ago, he brought home a stack of documents. He said we were doing a streamlined refinance, to lower the rate. Did you read them? She laughed. A nervous, fluttering sound. Oh, Lucy, you know me. Legalese makes my eyes cross. Ray explained it all. He said it was just standard restructuring to free up some capital for the renovation. He had all the sticky notes showing me where to sign. I felt a wave of sadness so profound it almost knocked me over. She had signed away her equity, her security, because he had put sticky notes on the dotted lines. Did he give you copies? I asked. No, she said. He took them back to the office to file. He said he keeps everything in the safe there because it is more secure. I nodded. I didn't want to scare her. Not yet. If I told her now, she would panic. She would ask Ray. Ray would spin a story about how I was confused, or jealous, or ungrateful. He would turn her against me before I had enough proof to save her. Okay, I said. I was just wondering. Marianne picked up her tea. He is so good with the numbers. Lucy, I don't know where we would be without him. I looked at her. Sipping her tea in the house she was slowly losing. I know. Mom, I said, I know exactly where we would be. I went upstairs to my room. I closed the door and locked it. I took the bank printouts from my purse and slid them into a folder I had labeled Project Sunshine. I added a printout of my credit report with the unauthorized inquiry highlighted in yellow. I sat on my bed and looked around the room. This wasn't a home anymore. It was a crime scene. Ray wasn't just a thief. He was an arsonist. He was burning down our financial future to keep himself warm, and he was using my bonus as the kindling. I made a decision then. I would not ask about the money again. I would not complain about the joint account. I would not make snide comments at dinner. I would be silent. I would be the dutiful, slightly oblivious stepdaughter. I would let him think he had won. I would let him think the money was his, the house was his, and the control was his. Because the more comfortable he got, the sloppier he would get. I opened my laptop and started a new email draft to the HR department at Crestmore. Subject: Request for payroll records. Confidential. To whom it may concern, I am requesting a formal trace on the direct deposit issued on May 12th in the amount of $14,200. I need confirmation of the routing numbers and the exact timestamp of release. Additionally, please advise on the protocol for reporting diverted funds. I typed, I saved, I prepared. Ray wanted to be the head of the household. He wanted to be the man who handled the numbers. Fine, I would let him handle the numbers. Every single damning one of them. 2 days later, I was back in the hushed, carpeted interior of Lakewood Heritage Bank. This time, I did not wait for a ticket. I walked straight to the desk of a branch manager named Philip Vance. He was a man with a heavy sigh and a tie that looked too tight. The kind of bureaucrat who viewed customer problems as personal affronts to his schedule. I want to see the change logs for the profile update on May 14th, I said, sitting down before he had even gestured to the chair. Philip blinked, adjusting his glasses. Excuse me? The joint account ending in 442. I said, sliding my ID across the polished wood. There was a modification to the security settings and the addition of an external transfer link to Halston Consulting LLC. I want to see the audit trail. I want to know exactly what time it happened, which device was used, and whose credentials authorized it. Philip picked up my ID and typed slowly into his terminal. He frowned at the screen, then looked back at me with a practiced expression of regret. Ms. Price, he said, I can see the account, and I can see the update marker. However, those specific system logs, IP addresses, device IDs, specific timestamps down to the second, are considered internal security data. We don't just print those out for customers. I am not just a customer, I said, keeping my voice low and hard. I am an account holder. And I believe that profile update was executed to facilitate the unauthorized removal of $14,200. Philip stiffened. Unauthorized? The other account holder is Mr. Ray Halston. Are you saying he did not have permission to access the funds? I am saying the security parameters were altered to prevent me from stopping the transfer. I said, and I want the documentation that proves how it was done. Philip leaned back, interlacing his fingers. Look, Ms. Price, since it is a joint account with full survivorship and equal access rights, either party can legally change the settings. If Mr. Halston made the changes, he was within his rights according to the account agreement. To release the security logs you are asking for, which are technical records, I would need a subpoena or the written consent of both account holders. I felt a cold flush of anger, but I tamped it down. The system was built to protect the primary administrator, and Ray had made sure he was the primary. Fine, I said. If you can't give me the logs, then I want to file a formal dispute. Philip sighed again, reaching into a drawer. For which transaction? For all of them. I said, specifically the transfers to Halston Consulting LLC, dated between June 2nd and June 5th. I want to go on record stating that these transfers were not authorized by me, that they were made immediately following a deposit of my personal wages, and that I am contesting the validity of the beneficiary. Philip slid a form across the desk. It was a generic transaction dispute request. Fill this out, he said. But I have to warn you, since the money went to an entity sharing the name of the joint holder, The fraud department is likely to view this as a domestic civil matter. Not bank fraud. They might freeze the account during the investigation, which would lock both of you out. Good. I said, freeze it. I took the pen. I wrote furiously. I listed every date. I listed every amount. $3,000, $2,500. Under the section for reason for dispute, I wrote in block letters, funds misappropriated by joint holder via deceptive account restrictions. I made Philip photocopy the signed form. I made him stamp the copy with the branch date stamp. It is going to take 10 business days for a preliminary review, Philip said, handing me the copy. And Mr. Halston will be notified that a dispute has been filed. I took the paper. That is exactly what I'm counting on. Ray knew before he even walked in the door that night. The bank must have sent an automated alert. Or maybe Philip had called him as a courtesy. I was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for a salad. I had no intention of eating. The garage door opened. The heavy footsteps came up the hallway. But instead of the usual booming greeting, there was a heavy, loaded silence. Ray stood in the doorway. He was still wearing his work jacket. His face was a mask of wounded dignity. He looked at me, then looked at Marianne, who was at the stove. He shook his head slowly, as if he were disappointed in a puppy that had chewed a slipper. I got a funny email today. Lucy, he said. His voice was soft, sad. From the bank. I didn't stop chopping. Did you? Yeah, he said. It says there is a dispute on the account, like someone flagged my business transfers as fraud. Marianne turned around, spoon in hand. Fraud? What? Ray walked over to the island and leaned on it, staring at me. Lucy filed a report. Marianne, she told the bank I am a thief. Marianne gasped. Lucy, you didn't. I put the knife down. I looked at Ray. I didn't say you were a thief. Ray, I said the transfers were unauthorized, because they were. You moved $14,000 of my money into a secret account without asking me. That is the definition of unauthorized. Ray let out a sharp, bitter laugh. Secret account? It is a holding company. Lucy, I told you, I am managing the family assets, and now you go and flag it? Do you know what that does? It freezes the liquidity. It makes me look like a criminal to the bank I have been banking with for 20 years. He ran a hand through his thinning hair. Performing stress. I am trying to build something for us, he said to Marianne. I am trying to get us the sunroom. I am trying to get the refinance so we can lower the payments. And your daughter is running around town filing paperwork to sabotage me. He turned his eyes back to me. They were wet. He was actually tearing up. It was a masterclass. It hurts. Lucy, he said, it really hurts. After everything I have done, I took you in when you couldn't afford the city. I put a roof over your head. And this is how you repay me? By treating me like a con artist? I am not treating you like a con artist, I said, my voice steady. I am treating you like a bank error I am trying to correct. If you want the dispute dropped, just transfer the money back. All of it. Today. Ray's face hardened for a second, then softened again into that cloying, paternal look. I can't just move it back, he said. It is tied up in the allocation now. If I pull it, we lose the yield. He sighed, walking around the island to stand next to me. He lowered his voice, making it intimate. Just between us. Look, I get it. You are stressed about the cash. You want to feel secure. I understand that. So here's what I will do. He paused, waiting for me to look at him. I will take over your car insurance, he said. For the next 6 months, I will pay the premium out of the general fund. That is one less bill for you to worry about. It will help you catch up on your cash flow. How does that sound? I stared at him. My car insurance was $140 a month. 6 months of that was $840. He was offering me $800 in exchange for $14,200, and he looked expecting, like he was bestowing a great gift. No, I said. Ray blinked. No, I said, I do not need you to pay my insurance. I need you to return the principal sum. I need the $14,200 to pay the debts I told you I was paying. Ray's smile faltered. The corners of his mouth twitched. "You are being unreasonable," he said, his voice dropping an octave, losing the sadness and finding the steel. "I am offering you a buffer. I am offering to help. You are offering me pennies on the dollar." "Ray," I said, "and I am not buying it." He stared at me then. The mask didn't just slip, it evaporated. For a second, I saw the man behind the Stepdad performance. I saw a man who despised being told no. I saw a man who viewed my money not as my property, but as a resource he had successfully hunted and claimed. His eyes went dead cold. "Suit yourself," he said. He straightened up and brushed invisible dust off his sleeve. "But don't come crying to me when the bank laughs at your little report. I am the primary holder. Lucy, I set the rules. You are just a guest on the account, and guests should learn some manners." He turned to Marianne, his face instantly bright and warm again. "What is for dinner?" "Honey, I am starved." I walked out of the kitchen. I felt sick, but I also felt something else. Clarity. There was no misunderstanding. There was no investment strategy. He had stolen it, and he felt entitled to keep it. The next day, I took an early lunch and drove to the corporate headquarters of Crestmore Clinical Solutions. I didn't go to my desk. I went to the HR suite on the 4th floor. I had an appointment with Brenda, the payroll specialist. She was a kind woman with pictures of her grandchildren all over her cubicle walls. "Hi, Lucy," she said. "Come on in. You said you had a question about the W-2s?" "Not exactly," I said, closing the frosted glass door behind me. "I need a favor. Brenda, and I need it to be confidential." Brenda's smile faded slightly. She put down her pen. "Is everything okay?" "I am dealing with a situation involving identity theft." I said, "It is personal, not work-related, but I need to establish a paper trail for the bonus payment." I sat down. "I need a formal letter from Crestmore, confirming the date the funds were released, the exact amount, and the routing number of the destination account. And I need it to state clearly that the funds were issued to Lucy Price as compensation for employment." Brenda nodded slowly. "We can do that. That is standard verification of deposit." "And," I added, hesitating, "I need to know something else. If a police report is filed, and it is proven that the funds were diverted fraudulently after they left your system, is there any mechanism for reissuing the payment?" Brenda looked sympathetic, but she shook her head. "Once the ACH clears into the account you authorized, our liability ends. Lucy, if someone took it from the bank, that is between you, the bank, and the police. We can't pay you twice." I expected that, but hearing it out loud made my chest tight. The money was truly gone unless I clawed it back from Ray. "However," Brenda said, lowering her voice, "I can verify the deposit. And if you need an affidavit for a court case stating that this income belongs solely to you and was not a joint benefit, I can draft that. We have had to do it for divorce cases before." "Yes," I said. "Please." She typed for a moment, the keys clacking softly. "I will have it ready for you by the end of the day," she said. "And Lucy?" "Yes?" "I hope you catch whoever did it." I smiled, a grim, tight expression. "I know exactly who did it. Brenda. Now I just have to prove it." That night, I didn't go home for dinner. I sat in my car in a parking lot of a grocery store, eating a sandwich that tasted like cardboard. My laptop was tethered to my phone's hotspot. I had the spreadsheet open. I was done looking at the dates. Now I was looking at the amounts. Ray had been clever to split the transfers, but he hadn't been random. People are rarely random when they are desperate. I looked at the outgoing transfers from the joint account to Halston Consulting LLC. June 2, $3,412. June 2, $1,890. June 3, $5,200. They were odd numbers. Investments are usually round. You buy $5,000 of stock. You move $10,000 into a bond. You don't move $3,412 unless you are paying a bill that is exactly $3,412. I opened a new tab. I started searching for debt consolidation patterns. I typed in the amounts. Nothing came up for the specific numbers. Obviously, but the pattern was clear. He was paying off specific line items. I called Nia. "Hey," she answered. "You okay?" "I am looking at the numbers." I said, "He didn't invest it. He paid off debts." "How do you know?" "Because nobody invests $3,412. I said, "That is a credit card balance, Nia, or a medical bill, or a gambling debt." "Can you see where Halston Consulting sent the money?" Nia asked. "No." I said, "That is the black box, but we can find out more about Halston Consulting. I am already on it." Nia said, "I was at the clerk of courts today for work. I ran a search on the name. And? It is brand new," she said. "Registered May 16th. Just like the bank said. But Lucy, look at the address." I waited. "It is 4500 Orchard Road, Suite 204. I typed it into my map app. Orchard Road. It is the strip mall next to the gas station. I said, "Exactly." Nia said, "Suite 204 is a pack and ship store. It is a mailbox rental. Halston Consulting is a drawer in a metal wall." I closed my eyes. He had set up a fake company with a fake address just to wash my money. "There is more," Nia said. Her voice was quieter now. "I ran a background check on Ray. Not a deep one, just public records." "What did you find?" "There is a lien. Lucy. From 4 years ago. It is a state tax lien. $12,000. It was filed against him personally. Before he married your mom. Is it satisfied?" I asked. "The record shows it as active." Nia said, "If he is trying to refinance the house, that lien is a brick wall. He can't close a loan with an outstanding tax judgment." The pieces slammed together in my mind. He is using my bonus to pay off the tax lien. I whispered, "That is why he needed the cash so fast. He has to clear his own name so he can use my mother's credit to get the new mortgage. He is paying his back taxes with your student loan money." Nia said, I felt a surge of rage so pure it felt like adrenaline. He wasn't just stealing. He was erasing his past failures with my future labor. "I need the proof." I said, "I need to link the payments. You need the bank statements from Halston Consulting." Nia said, "But you can't get those. Only the owner can." "Then I need him to admit it," I said, "or I need to trap him in the lie." I went home. The house was dark, except for the blue glow of the television in the living room. Ray was asleep in his recliner, his mouth slightly open, looking for all the world like a tired, honest man. I walked past him and found Marianne in the kitchen. She was loading the dishwasher. She looked up when I entered, her eyes anxious. "Did you eat?" she asked. I nodded. "Mom, we need to talk." Briefly. I pulled out the folded paper from my pocket. It was just the transaction list from the bank, the one Tessa had printed. I had highlighted the transfers to Halston Consulting. I put it on the counter. "Does this look normal to you?" I asked. Marianne wiped her hands on a dish towel. She looked at the paper, then away. "Lucy, please. Ray said you filed a dispute. He is so upset. He says you are trying to freeze the accounts. I am trying to find the money." "Mom, look at the names. Halston Consulting. Have you ever heard of that company?" "No. But Ray does consulting work. He advises people on logistics. He works at a trucking depot." "Mom, he doesn't consult. And look at the amounts." I pointed to the $3,412. "That is not an investment." I said, "That is a bill payment." "Mom, he is paying off his old debts. He is clearing his record so he can use the house for a loan." Marianne stiffened. She looked at the paper again, her eyes tracing the yellow highlighter. I saw a flicker of doubt in her face, a crack in the denial. "He has been worried," she whispered. She didn't look at me. "Worried about what?" "Money." She said, "He checks the mail before I get to it. He gets calls on his cell phone and walks out to the yard to answer them. He told me it was just business stress. But he has been weirdly intense about appearances, about what the neighbors think." She looked up at me. "He told me the refinance was to fix the roof and build the sunroom. to make the house nice for us. He is refinancing to pull cash out. Mom, I said gently. And he needed my bonus to qualify. Marianne shook her head, backing away from the counter. No, he wouldn't do that. He loves us. He is just complicated with money. He wants to be the provider. He is providing with stolen funds. I said, "Stop it, Lucy," she snapped. Her voice cracked. "Just stop it. I can't handle this right now. We have the fundraiser coming up. I can't be fighting with him." She turned and fled the room. I heard her bedroom door close upstairs. She knew. I could see it in her eyes. She knew something was wrought deep in the foundation of her marriage. But she was too terrified to look at it directly. She would rather believe the lie than face the demolition. 2 days later, Ray made his move. He came home on a Thursday, beaming. He was carrying a stack of glossy flyers. He slapped one down on the dining table like it was a winning poker hand. "Big news. Ladies," he announced. I picked up the flyer. Briar Glen Civic Association Annual Gala. "They asked me to join the board," Ray said, puffing out his chest. "Treasurer. Can you believe it? They want someone with financial acumen to handle the association's funds." I almost choked. The irony was so thick I could taste it. "That is great, Ray," Marianne said, her voice sounding thin and forced. "And," Ray continued, ignoring her tone, "they are doing a special recognition at the gala next Saturday. For new board members, I need my girls there. Front row." He looked at me, his eyes daring me to object. "It is a black tie thing. Community leaders. The mayor might be there. It is important that we show a united front. Family is the bedrock of community, right?" He was doing it on purpose. He was inviting me to a public stage because he thought I wouldn't dare make a scene. He thought the social pressure of the gala would force me to play the role of the proud stepdaughter. He was weaponizing his reputation to silence me. I looked at the flyer. Saturday, June 24th, 7 p.m. Ray was right. It was the perfect setting. I looked up at him. He was smiling. That predatory, self-satisfied smile. "I will be there." "Ray," I said. "Good," he said. "Wear something nice? We want to look prosperous." I looked at Marianne. She was staring at her plate, looking small and defeated. I realized then that filing disputes and talking to HR wasn't enough. Ray didn't care about paperwork. He cared about the audience. He cared about the Hendersons and the Civic Association and the image of the benevolent provider. He was building a stage for his triumph. Fine, I would step onto it. I decided right then. The fundraiser would be the deadline. I wouldn't sue him in quiet courtrooms where he could spin lies to a judge. I wouldn't argue with him in the kitchen where he could gaslight my mother. If he wanted applause, I would give him a show. I took the flyer and pinned it to the refrigerator. "I am really looking forward to it," I said. And for the first time in weeks, I wasn't lying. I was going to bring receipts, but I needed them to be bulletproof. I needed to know exactly where the money went after it hit the mailbox store. I needed one more layer of evidence, and I knew who could help me get it. I picked up my phone and texted Nia. "I am going to the gala, but I need to talk to your boss first. I need a lawyer." The law office of Kayla Merritt was located in a converted brick row house 3 streets over from the courthouse, sandwiched between a bail bondsman and a high-end coffee roaster. It smelled of lemon polish and old paper. I sat across from Kayla, a woman with steel-gray hair cut into a severe bob and eyes that looked like they had seen every possible variation of human greed. I had paid $250 for this hour. I intended to use every minute of it. "So, let me get this straight," Kayla said. Looking over the spreadsheet I had printed, "You are a joint account holder. The primary holder, your stepfather, transferred $14,200 of your personal payroll deposit into an external LLC that he controls, and now he is claiming it as a family asset?" "Yes," I said. Kayla leaned back, tapping a pen against her chin. "And you never signed an authorization for the external link?" "No, but he has dual authorization set up on the account?" "Yes. He added it 2 days after I told him the bonus was coming." Kayla sighed. She took off her reading glasses and rubbed the bridge of her nose. Here is the hard truth. Lucy, joint accounts are the Wild West of banking law. The moment you deposited that money, it legally became shared property. In the eyes of the bank, he did not steal it. He accessed funds he had a legal right to access. I felt a cold weight settle in my stomach. So there is nothing I can do? I did not say that, she said, putting her glasses back on. I said it is not simple theft. It is civil misappropriation. To win this, and I mean really win it without spending $20,000 in legal fees, you do not need to prove he took the money. You need to prove he committed fraud to get it. She pointed to the spreadsheet. You need to prove the setup was premeditated. You need to prove the Halston Consulting LLC is a sham entity designed solely to hide assets. And most importantly, you need to prove he deceived you about the nature of the transaction. She looked me in the eye. Document everything, every conversation, every time he changes the password, every time he gaslights you about where the money went. And do not, I repeat, do not make a public accusation until you have the authenticated bank records in your hand. If you scream thief at a dinner party and you do not have the paper to back it up, he can sue you for defamation, and he might win. I nodded. I'm getting the records. Good, she said. Get the authorization trail. Find out exactly when that external link was added and by whom. If he used your credentials, that is identity theft. If he used his own but lied to the bank about the purpose, that is bank fraud. Find the leverage. She stood up and shook my hand. Her grip was firm. And Lucy? Get your money out of there. Stop feeding the beast. I went straight from the law office to the main branch of Lakewood Heritage Bank. I was done dealing with tellers. I asked for the operations manager. I sat in a glass-walled office with a man named Mr. Henderson, no relation to my neighbor, who looked like he would rather be undergoing a root canal than dealing with a domestic dispute. I need a notarized transaction history, I said, and I need the metadata for the profile update on May 14th. Mr. Henderson looked pained. Ms. Price, we discussed this. Internal logs are... I cut him off. I have legal counsel now. We are preparing a civil complaint regarding fraudulent conveyance of funds. If I have to subpoena these records, I will name the bank as a co-defendant for facilitating the unauthorized transfer structure. Or you can just give me the timestamps and the origin markers, which is standard disclosure for an account holder. Mr. Henderson stared at me. He saw I was not blinking. He typed something into his computer. I can provide the access log summary, he said stiffly. He printed 3 pages. He stamped them. He signed them. He crimped them with the notary seal. I took the papers and walked out to my car. I didn't look at them until I had the doors locked and the air conditioning blasting. I flipped to the second page. May 14th, 12:42 p.m. Action. External transfer, link added. Destination, Halston Consulting, LLC. Origin, Branch 104, Kiosk 3. Authorization, ID verification. Ray Halston. I froze. May 14th. That was a Sunday. Ray had told us he was going to the hardware store to get mulch. He had gone to the bank branch inside the grocery store, Branch 104, and used the self-service kiosk. He had physically gone there to set up the trap because he knew I would be home and might see a notification if he did it on the home computer. He had planned it while eating pancakes that morning. I looked at the next line. May 14th, 12:45 p.m. Action. Security profile update. Dual authorization enabled for outgoing transfers. He had spent 3 minutes ensuring that once the money hit the net, I would be powerless to cut it loose. It was cold-blooded. It wasn't a crime of opportunity. It was a hunting trip. That evening, the atmosphere in the house was suffocating. Ray was in the living room, watching a baseball game, but the volume was turned down low. He was agitated. I could tell by the way his foot tapped against the ottoman. When I walked into the kitchen, he muted the TV. Lucy, he called out, "Got a minute?" I walked into the living room. Yeah? He gestured to the armchair. Sit down. We need to have a family meeting. I sat. Where is Mom? She is taking a bath, he said. This is just between us. The numbers people. He tried to smile, but it looked like a grimace. "Look," he started, "I have been crunching the monthly burn rate. With the inflation on groceries and the utilities hiking up summer rates, the household account is running a little lean." I stared at him. "You mean the account you drained?" He ignored me. "I think we need to adjust the contributions. Since you are making good money now, and we know you are, with that bonus, I think it is fair if you bump your share to $1,500 a month, just to keep things comfortable." I looked at him. He was serious. He had stolen $14,000, and now he was asking for a rent hike. "No." I said. "Excuse me?" I said no. "Ray, I am not increasing my contribution. In fact, I am changing how I pay it." I stood up. "From now on, I will not be depositing anything into the joint account. I will pay the electric bill, the water bill, and the internet bill directly from my own personal account. That comes to about $400. I will write a check to Marianne for the remaining $800 for the mortgage share." Ray's face turned a mottled red. "You can't do that. That messes up the auto-pay system. We need everything in one pot. I am not putting another dime in a pot that has a hole in the bottom." I said. "It is not a hole," he snapped, his voice rising. "It is management. You are being petty. Lucy, you are trying to control things you do not understand. I understand that $14,000 went into that account and $0 came out for me." I said, "So, no more joint deposits." Ray stood up, towering over me. He was trying to use his size, his physical presence, to cow me. It was a tactic that worked on my mother. "You live under my roof," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "You play by my rules." "I live under my mother's roof." I said, "Her name is on the deed. Ray, yours is just on the refinance application you are trying to hide." He recoiled, as if I had slapped him. His eyes darted to the hallway, checking if Marianne was listening. "You tread carefully. Lucy," he hissed, "you do not know what you are messing with." "I know exactly what I'm messing with." I said, "A balance sheet." I turned and walked away. My heart was hammering, but my hands were steady. The next morning, I took the day off. I didn't tell Ray. I waited until he left for work. Then I got in my car and drove to a bank 3 towns over, a credit union that had no affiliation with Lakewood Heritage. I opened a new checking account. I opened a new savings account. I sat in the plastic chair and filled out the forms, and for the first time in a month, I felt safe. I set up 2-factor authentication linked to a new email address I had created that morning. I declined the overdraft protection. I declined the credit card offer. Then I drove to the library and used a public computer to log into my payroll portal. I deleted the Lakewood joint account details. I entered the new credit union routing number. I clicked save. It felt like cutting an anchor chain. Then I went to the credit bureau websites. Experian, TransUnion, Equifax. I clicked freeze credit file. I set a PIN that was a random string of numbers I had memorized. If Ray tried to use my social security number to bolster his debt-to-income ratio for his loan, he was going to hit a wall of ice. I drove home feeling lighter. I had built a fortress. Now I just needed to defend it. Marianne was in the garden when I got back. She was weeding the petunias, ripping out the clover with a savage intensity that was unlike her. "Mom?" I asked. She jumped. "Oh, you scared me." She wiped her forehead with the back of her glove. She looked exhausted. The skin under her eyes was papery and dark. "Ray is asking questions," she said softly. She didn't look at me. "What kind of questions?" "About you. About why you are so hostile lately. He says you are ungrateful. He says you are trying to drive a wedge between us. He is projecting—" "Mom," I said. She sat back on her heels. "Lucy, he asked me to sign another paper last night. For the bank. Did you sign it?" She hesitated. I told him I wanted to read it first." "Good for you." "Mom, he got so angry." She whispered. "He didn't yell. He got quiet. He said if I didn't trust him, maybe he should just stop trying to save us. He said if he stopped managing the money, we would lose the house in 6 months." She looked up at me. Her eyes filled with tears. "Is that true?" Lucy, are we that bad off? No. Mom, I said, kneeling in the dirt beside her, we are not bad off. You have a pension. You have the house. I have a job. We are fine. Ray is the one who is drowning. I don't understand, she said. He shows me the spreadsheets. They look so complicated. All these transfers, dual authorizations. I don't know what any of it means. I feel so stupid. Lucy, that is how he wants you to feel, I said fiercely. He makes it complicated so you won't ask questions. Dual authorization just means he locked the door so I couldn't get my money out. It is not high finance. It is a padlock. Marianne pulled off her glove. Her hand was shaking. He said the bonus was safe. She said, he said he put it in a, what did he call it? A liquidity vehicle. He put it in a mailbox. Mom, I said. I saw the confusion on her face. I can prove it. I said, but not yet. You have to trust me. Just for a few more days. Do not sign anything. Tell him you have a headache. Tell him you lost your reading glasses. Just don't sign. She nodded slowly. Okay, I won't sign. 2 days before the gala, I found the smoking gun. It was an accident. I was looking for a roll of packing tape in the junk drawer in the hallway, the one we jokingly called the drawer of doom, where batteries and rubber bands went to die. I dug past a dead flashlight and a stack of takeout menus. At the very back, shoved under a plastic tray of thumbtacks, was a manila folder. It was labeled in Ray's blocky handwriting, Ref-I, do not misplace. I pulled it out. My pulse quickened. I opened it. Inside was a stack of glossy mailers from subprime lenders. Cash out now. Approval guaranteed. But underneath the junk mail was a printed document. It was a draft of a budget plan, dated May 10th, 2 days before I even got the official bonus notification. But after I had mentioned the possibility of it, I scanned the columns. Income. Ray salary, $3,800. Marianne pension, $2,200. Lucy rent, $1,200. Special one-time infusion. Lucy bonus, $14,000. Est. There it was. He had already spent it before I even earned it. But the next section was what stopped my heart. Allocation of funds. State tax. Lien settlement, $12,500. Credit card consolidation, $1,500. Refinance application fee, $500. He had written it down. He had literally created a ledger where he assigned my hard work to pay off his tax evasion. State tax lien settlement. He wasn't investing it. He wasn't saving the family. He was paying off the government so they wouldn't seize his assets. I pulled my phone out and snapped a picture of the document. Then another. Then a close-up of the date. What are you doing? I spun around. Ray was standing at the end of the hallway. He was wearing his socks, so I hadn't heard him approach. He looked calm, too calm. I held up the folder. I found this. Ray. He walked toward me slowly. He didn't look at the folder. He looked at my face. You shouldn't be snooping in my private papers. Lucy, that is a violation of privacy. Private? I laughed. A harsh, jagged sound. It lists my money. Ray, special one-time infusion. You planned this. You planned to steal it before I even got the check. Ray stopped 3 feet from me. He crossed his arms. I didn't steal it. He said, I allocated it. That tax lien was hanging over this family like a dark cloud. If the state came after me, they would come after the house. I saved your mother's home. Lucy, you should be thanking me. You paid your debt with my money. I said, and you lied about it. You told Mom it was for the sunroom. You told me it was an investment. I told you what you needed to hear, he said smoothly, because you are too emotional to understand the big picture. He reached out his hand. Give me the folder. Lucy, I pulled it back against my chest. No. Ray's face changed. The smooth mask vanished. His lips thinned into a white line. Don't do this, he said softly. Do not embarrass this family. I am not the one who embezzled $14,000. Ray, he took a step closer. Listen to me. If you make a scene, if you tell your mother about the tax thing, it will kill her. She thinks I am a hero. She needs to believe that. If you shatter that, you break her heart. Can you live with that?" He was holding Marianne hostage. He was using her fragility as a human shield. "She is stronger than you think." I said. "She is fragile," Ray corrected. "And if you humiliate us, if you humiliate me, at the fundraiser, or in front of the neighbors, she will never forgive you. You will be the daughter who destroyed her happiness." He smiled then, a cold, winning smile. "Think about it. Lucy, is the money worth losing your mother?" I looked at him. I realized then that he truly believed he was untouchable. He believed that my love for my mother was a weakness he could exploit forever. I didn't hand him the folder. I dropped it on the floor between us. I walked past him. I didn't say a word. I went to my room and closed the door. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from clarity. He thought the threat of exposure would silence me. He didn't realize that exposure was the only thing that would set us free. I picked up my phone. I dialed Aunt Denise. She was my father's sister, a woman who had never liked Ray and had a spine made of titanium. "Aunt Denise?" I said when she answered. "Lucy? Is everything okay? You sound breathless." "I need a favor," I said. "A big one. Are you free Saturday night?" "I can be." "Why?" "There's a fundraiser at the community hall. Ray is being honored." "Ugh," Denise said. "I would rather watch paint dry." "I need you to come," I said, "and I need you to bring Cousin Mark. I need witnesses." "Denise?" There was a pause on the line. The tone of her voice shifted. "Witnesses for what?" "Honey? For the truth." I said, "Ray stole my bonus. All of it. And I'm going to prove it." "We will be there," Denise said. "What time?" 7, I said. "Wear comfortable shoes." The day of the fundraiser arrived with a sky the color of a bruise. The humidity was heavy, pressing down on the suburbs of Briar Glen. I spent the afternoon preparing. I wasn't getting my hair done. I was organizing exhibits. I had the bank notarized history. I had the screenshot of the Halston consulting transfer. I had the photo of the REFI budget plan with the tax lien line item. I had the corporate registration for the mailbox store. I made 5 copies of the packet. I stapled them neatly. Downstairs, I could hear Ray rehearsing. He was in the living room, walking back and forth. He was talking to the empty air. And it hasn't been easy. Folks, we all know the economy is tough. But when you love your family, you make the sacrifices, you move the mountains, you do what needs to be done to keep the roof over their heads. He paused for effect. "My wife Marianne, she is my rock, and my stepdaughter Lucy. Well, we are all pulling together. It is a team effort." I stood at the top of the stairs, listening. He was writing me into his script. He was going to use my presence at the gala as a prop. See? The happy stepdaughter, proof of my benevolence. If I sat there and smiled, I was complicit. If I let him clap for himself while my bank account was empty, I was agreeing to be his victim. I went back to my room. I put on my navy blue dress. It was simple, professional. Armor. I looked in the mirror. I looked like Lucy Price, but I didn't feel like the Lucy Price who had moved home to save money. I felt like someone else, someone colder, someone who understood that family wasn't a magic word that excused theft. I heard Marianne calling from downstairs. "Lucy, we are leaving in 10 minutes. I grabbed my purse. I checked the inside pocket. The packets were there. I walked downstairs. Ray was wearing a tuxedo. He looked handsome, in a superficial way. He was adjusting his cufflinks. "You look nice. Lucy," he said. "Very appropriate." Marianne was wearing a silver gown. She looked beautiful, but nervous. She was twisting her rings. "Are we ready?" Ray asked. "It is showtime." "Yes," I said. "It certainly is." We walked out to the car. Ray held the door for Marianne, then for me, the perfect gentleman, the perfect provider. As we pulled out of the driveway, Ray looked at me in the rearview mirror. "Remember? Lucy," he said, his eyes meeting mine. "Smile. We have a lot of people to impress tonight." I held his gaze. "Don't worry. Ray," I said, "I think they are going to be very impressed." he smiled, thinking I had folded, thinking he had won. He had no idea that I had Aunt Denise waiting in the parking lot. And the truth waiting in my purse. The ride to the community hall was short. The silence was loud. We arrived. The parking lot was full. Music was drifting out the open doors. Ray killed the engine. "Let's go knock them dead," he said. I opened my door. "After you." "Ray," I whispered. The manila envelope from Lakewood Heritage Bank was heavy. Heavier than a few sheets of paper had any right to be. I picked it up from the branch manager, Philip Vance, on Friday morning, 24 hours before Ray's big night. Philip did not smile this time. He did not offer me coffee. He handed me the packet with the solemnity of a coroner passing over personal effects. "The fraud review is complete," Philip said. His voice clipped. "We have flagged the transactions as disputable based on the timing of the security profile changes. However, as I warned you, recovery is not guaranteed. This packet contains the official audit trail and the dispute registration number. Thank you." "Philip," I said. I sat in my car in the bank parking lot and opened the clasp. The air conditioning blasted against my face, drying the sweat that had formed on my upper lip. Inside were 10 pages of dense, unfeeling data. Transaction history. Primary joint checking. 4,421. June 2nd. Deposit. Crestmore Clinical Solutions. $14,200. June 2nd. Transfer out. $3,412. June 2nd. Transfer out. $1,890. I ran my finger down the list. I had seen these numbers before on the screen. But seeing them printed on official bank stationery, with the fraud department's watermark behind them, made them real in a way pixels never could. But it was the third page that stopped my breath. It was a breakdown of the counterparties, the receiving ends of the transfers that had been routed through the Halston Consulting LLC shell. The bank's internal investigation had traced the immediate flow of funds to verify the business nature of the activity. Most of them were labeled Card Service Center or Lender Administration. But one entry stood out. A transfer of $4,200, executed on June 3rd, was tagged with a merchant ID, DHS Recovery Services. I frowned. DHS? Department of Human Services? No. I pulled out my phone and typed the merchant ID into the search bar. The result loaded instantly. DHS Recovery Services, specializing in delinquent spousal support and personal liability collections. I stared at the screen. Ray did not have an ex-wife. He had never been married before he met my mother. At least, that was the story. Or maybe it wasn't a wife. Maybe it was a child he had never mentioned. Or maybe it was a judgment from a lawsuit he had lost years ago. Whatever it was not a household debt. It was not a roof repair. It was not a family investment. It was Ray's secret history. And he had used my future to bury it. He hadn't just stolen my money to pay the bills. He had stolen it to silence a ghost I didn't even know existed. And he had prioritized that ghost over me, over Marianne, over the very stability he claimed to be protecting. I closed the folder. The anger that had been burning in me for weeks cooled into something hard and sharp, like a diamond. I drove home. I knew exactly what I had to do. The house was quiet when I arrived. Ray was at work, or consulting, or whatever he did when he wasn't draining bank accounts. Marianne was in the living room, steaming the silver dress she planned to wear to the gala. She looked up when I walked in, her face tight with anxiety. She offered a tentative smile. "Hi, honey," she said. "I'm just getting the wrinkles out. Ray wants us to look perfect tomorrow." I walked over and unplugged the steamer. The hiss of steam died away. "Lucy?" she asked, confusion clouding her eyes. "Sit down." "Mom," I said. She looked at my face, then at the thick envelope in my hand. She sat on the edge of the sofa, her hands clutching the silver fabric of the dress like a lifeline. "Is this about the money again?" she whispered. "Ray said you dropped it. He said you realized you were mistaken." "Ray lied," I said. I sat on the coffee table, directly across from her. I was close enough to smell her perfume, the same lavender scent she had worn since I was a child. It smelled like safety. It smelled like the mother who used to check under my bed for monsters. I needed that mother now, but to get her back, I had to break the spell the monster had cast over her. I opened the envelope. I took out the third page. "Mom," I said, keeping my voice low and steady, "I need you to look at this. Really look at it." I pointed to the entry. DHS Recovery Services, $4,200. "Do you know what this is?" I asked. Marianne squinted at the paper. "No. It looks like a bill?" "It is a collection agency." "Mom," I said, "for personal liability, usually unpaid support or court judgments." She shook her head. A quick, jerky motion. "No. Ray doesn't have anything like that. He has a clean slate. He told you a lot of things." I said, "He told you he was investing the money. But you don't invest in a collection agency. You pay them to keep them from garnishing your wages." I watched the information land. I watched her struggle to push it away, to retreat into the comfortable fiction Ray had built for her. He helps people. She stammered. Maybe he was helping a friend. He is generous like that. "Mom," I said, grabbing her hands. Her skin was cold. "He used $4,000 of my bonus, the money I worked for, the money I needed to get out of debt, to pay a secret debt of his own. He didn't ask me. He didn't ask you. He just took it." Marianne pulled her hands away. She stood up and walked to the window, her back to me. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Why do you hate him so much? He has been good to us. He takes care of everything." I stood up too. "He is not taking care of us. Mom, he is managing us. There is a difference." I took a breath. I knew I had to ask the question that would hurt the most. "What did he tell you, Mom? When I told him about the bonus, what did he say to make you agree to pressure me into the joint account?" Marianne went still. She didn't turn around. He said. She stopped. "Tell me." I said, "He said you were unstable." She whispered. The word hung in the air like a slap. "Unstable?" I repeated. "He said, you have been acting manic," she said, her voice rushing now, the dam breaking. "He said you were drowning in debt because you have a spending problem. He said if that money hit your account, it would be gone in a week, on clothes, on trips, on nonsense. He said he needed to buffer you, to protect the money so you could actually pay off your loans." I felt tears prick my eyes, hot and stinging. I wasn't manic. I was exhausted. I was working 50 hours a week and eating ramen to save money. "And you believed him?" I asked softly. Marianne turned around then. Her face was wet with tears. "I didn't want to," she sobbed. "But he was so sure. He had charts. Lucy, he had a plan. He said he was the only one who could save you from yourself. And I just wanted you to be safe. I thought he was being a father. He wasn't being a father." "Mom," I said, "he was being a con artist. He projected his own desperation onto me. He needed that money. So he invented a reason why I couldn't be trusted with it." I walked over to her. I handed her the rest of the packet, the dates, the times, the log showing he set up the trap on a Sunday morning while we were eating breakfast. "Read it," I said, "all of it." Marianne took the papers. She sat back down on the sofa. She read. I watched her face change. I watched the denial fracture. She saw the date of the consulting firm registration. She saw the refi budget plan I had photographed, with the tax lien listed in black and white. She put the papers down. She looked small, older. "He pays the tax lien with your money," she said, her voice hollow. "And then he refinances the house." "Yes," I said. "And if he refinances, he pulls out the equity." I finished. "Your equity? The money Dad left you? The house you paid for? He drains it. Mom, and when the logistics job falls through, or the gambling debt comes back, or the next secret surfaces, we lose the house." Marianne covered her face with her hands. "Oh my God," she breathed. Oh my God. Lucy. I signed the papers. I signed the application. We can fix it. I said, but not if we stay silent. I knelt in front of her. I pulled her hands away from her face. Tomorrow is the fundraiser. I said, he is going to stand on that stage and tell the whole town what a great man he is. He expects us to stand there and smile. I can't go, Marianne said, shaking her head. I can't look at him. I will be sick. You have to go. I said. She looked at me, terrified. Why? Because if we stay home, he wins. I said, if we stay home, he tells everyone we are sick. He spins the narrative. He controls the story. I squeezed her hands. I am going to speak. Mom, I am going to tell the truth. I am not going to scream. I am not going to call him names. I am just going to show the receipts. Marianne's eyes widened. In front of everyone? Yes, he will destroy you, she whispered. He will say you are crazy. He has already planted the seeds. Let him try. I said, I have the bank records. Facts do not care if he thinks I'm crazy. I looked deep into her eyes, but I need you to make a choice. Mom, you can stand beside him and accept his version of reality. You can let him steal my money and your house and your dignity, or you can stand beside me. You don't have to say a word. You just have to not defend him. Marianne looked at the silver dress hanging on the door. She looked at the fraud packet on the table. She was trembling. The fear Ray had instilled in her, the fear of poverty, of being alone, of social humiliation, was a deep, jagged hook. I don't know if I can, she whispered. I stood up. I picked up the packet. You have 24 hours to decide. I said, but I am going, and I'm taking my voice with me. I spent the rest of the night in my room. I locked the door. I didn't want to see Ray when he came home. I heard him enter around 8 o'clock. I heard his booming voice greeting Marianne. I heard the silence that followed. A silence I hoped was Marianne refusing to engage, but feared was her retreating into submission. At 9:30. My phone buzzed on my nightstand, a notification from the banking app, the one I had set to alert me for any activity on the joint account, even though I had moved my own money out. Deposit received, $500. Memo, bonus return / partial. I stared at the screen. He was awake. He was thinking. He had sensed the shift in the house. Or maybe Marianne had let something slip. Or maybe he was just covering his bases before the big public moment. He was creating a paper trail. By transferring $500 and labeling it bonus return, he was building a defense. If I accused him of theft, he could point to this transaction and say, see, it was a loan. I am paying it back. Here's the proof. He was trying to convert a felony into a payment plan. I didn't smile. I didn't feel relief. I felt a cold admiration for his cunning. He never stopped working the angle. I took a screenshot. I opened my notes app. June 23rd, 9:32 p.m. Ray transfers $500. Label, bonus return. This confirms he acknowledges the original funds were mine and that he is in possession of them. He thought he was building a shield. He had just handed me a sword by labeling it return. He admitted the original taking was not a joint allocation, but a debt he owed me. I saved the image to the cloud. 10 minutes later, another notification popped up. This one was an email. Subject: regarding your inquiry about refinancing options. I frowned. I hadn't inquired about refinancing. I had frozen my credit files. I opened the email. It was from a company called Mid-State Mortgage Solutions. Dear applicant, thank you for your recent interest in our cash-out refinance products, based on the household income data submitted, including the secondary earner profile. We have prepared a preliminary term sheet. I read it twice. Secondary earner profile. He had used my name. He had used my income history, my $14,000 bonus, my steady salary at Crestmore, to boost the application. He was presenting the household as a 2-income powerhouse to get a bigger loan approved. And because I had frozen my credit after he likely started the application, this lender was responding to data he had already fed them. He was selling me to the bank as a co-borrower, or at least as a household asset, without my consent. I printed the email. I added it to the pile. I sat at my desk and pulled out a fresh sheet of paper. It was time to write the speech. I knew it couldn't be long. People stopped listening after 30 seconds of drama. It had to be surgical. I wrote, "I am not here to make a scene." I crossed it out. That sounded defensive. I wrote, "Ray Halston is a thief." I crossed it out. That sounded emotional, slanderous, even if true. I took a deep breath. I channeled the voice of Tessa Wren at the bank. I channeled the voice of Kayla Merritt. The attorney. My name is Lucy Price. On June 2nd, a deposit of $14,200 was made to the joint account I share with my stepfather. I wrote for 20 minutes. I refined every sentence. I removed every adjective. I stripped it down to nouns, verbs, and numbers. The money was transferred to an entity called Halston Consulting LLC. This entity is a mailbox rental. The funds were used to pay a personal debt to DHS Recovery Services. It was a sterile, boring recitation of facts, and that was what made it terrifying. It was irrefutable. I folded the paper and put it in my clutch purse. I texted Aunt Denise, "It is happening. He is doubling down. I need you and Mark right next to me when he starts speaking." Her reply came instantly. "We will be the wall. Honey, just say the word." Saturday arrived with an oppressive heat. The air was thick enough to chew. The house was a stage set of forced normalcy. Ray was whistling as he polished his shoes. He seemed to have forgotten the tension of the previous days, or perhaps he had decided that his bonus return transfer had solved the problem. In his mind, $500 bought him a clean slate. Marianne was a ghost. She moved through the house silently, her face pale. She put on the silver dress. She put on her pearl earrings. She didn't look at me. She didn't look at Ray. She looked like a woman walking to the gallows. We drove to the Briar Glen Community Hall in Ray's sedan. The leather seats were hot. Ray turned on the radio. Classic rock, loud and confident. "I am feeling good about tonight," he shouted over the guitar solo. "It is a good group of people, movers and shakers." I looked out the window at the passing suburban lawns. "You should be proud." "Ray," I said, "you have certainly moved and shaken things." He laughed, missing the edge in my voice entirely. "That is the name of the game. Lucy." The hall was decorated with crepe paper streamers and balloons in the Civic Association's colors, blue and gold. A banner hung over the stage. Celebrating our community leaders, we walked in. The air conditioning was struggling against the crowd. There were round tables with white tablecloths, a buffet line of chicken marsala and green beans, and a podium with a microphone that squealed slightly. Ray was in his element immediately. He pumped hands. He clapped men on the back. He kissed women on the cheek. He introduced Marianne as my better half, and me as my daughter, the financial whiz. I shook the hands. I smiled. I played the part. "Oh, she is lovely. Ray." A woman in a floral dress gushed. "You have such a beautiful family. We are very blessed," Ray said, beaming. "We take care of each other. That is what it is all about." I saw Aunt Denise across the room. She was wearing a sensible pantsuit and a look of grim determination. Cousin Mark, a former linebacker with a neck as thick as a tree trunk, stood beside her. He gave me a subtle nod. I signaled them with my eyes. "Stay close." We sat at the head table. I was on Ray's left. Marianne was on his right. The mayor was 2 seats down. I watched Ray eat. He ate with gusto. He drank the cheap white wine and laughed at the treasurer's bad jokes. He looked around the room with a proprietary air, as if he owned every person there. He believed his own myth. That was the scariest part. He truly believed he was the hero of this story. He believed that stealing my money to pay his debts was a noble act of management. He believed that lying to my mother was protection. He looked at me halfway through the salad course. "You are quiet tonight, Lucy," he said, "just saving my energy." "Ray," I said. He winked. "Smart girl. Let the old man do the talking." The speeches began at 8 o'clock. The president of the association rambled about zoning laws and park maintenance. A Awards were handed out for Best Garden and Volunteer of the Year. Then, the president leaned into the microphone, and now, I want to introduce our newest board member, a man who has stepped up to bring his professional expertise to our treasury, a man who knows the value of a dollar and the importance of family. Please welcome Ray Halston. The room applauded. It was a warm, genuine sound. These people liked him. They trusted him. Ray stood up. He buttoned his jacket. He touched Marianne's shoulder gently. "Wish me luck," he whispered. He walked to the podium. He adjusted the microphone. He looked out at the sea of faces, his face glowing with the spotlight. Thank you, he said. His voice was rich, projected perfectly. "It is an honor to serve this community," he began. "Briar Glen isn't just a place to live, it is a family. And like any family, we face challenges, we face tight budgets, we face hard choices." I reached into my purse. My fingers closed around the cold, sharp edges of the stapled bank packet. "But," Ray continued, his voice swelling with emotion, "when you have love, and when you have trust, you can weather any storm. I look at my own family tonight." He swept his hand toward our table. The spotlight swung to us. Marianne froze, her eyes wide and terrified. I stood up. I didn't wait for him to finish. I didn't wait for the applause. I stood up, and Aunt Denise and Mark stepped out of the shadows, flanking me like a Praetorian guard. Ray faltered. He saw me standing. He saw the paper in my hand. He smiled, a tight, confused expression. "It looks like my daughter wants to add something," he joked, trying to keep the mood light. I didn't smile back. I walked toward the stairs of the stage. I felt strangely steady. My heart wasn't racing. My hands weren't shaking. The fear was gone. The hesitation was gone. I wasn't a daughter anymore. I wasn't a stepchild. I wasn't a dependent. I was the audit, and the audit was due. Ray held the microphone with the casual confidence of a lounge singer. He had unbuttoned his tuxedo jacket, a gesture meant to signal warmth and approachability. The room was bathed in the soft, amber glow of the track lighting. And 60 faces were turned toward him, rapt. He was weaving a spell. It was a story about resilience, about the nobility of the suburban struggle. "You know," he said, his voice dropping to a husky register that suggested deep emotion, "it is not about the bank account. It is about the bond. When I look at my family, my beautiful wife Marianne, who has stood by me through thick and thin, I see the real wealth." He paused, letting the silence hang for a calculated second. Marianne was frozen in her chair, her eyes fixed on the tablecloth. She looked like a statue made of ice and fear. "And when I look at Lucy," he continued, gesturing toward me with an open hand, "a young woman making her way in the world, it hasn't always been easy for her. We have had to make hard choices. We have had to step in and provide guidance, sometimes when it wasn't popular. But tonight, seeing us all here, that is the payoff. That is the return on investment." He smiled, a benevolent patriarch basking in his own fictional glory. "So I accept this position on the board not just for me, but for them. Because a man provides, that is just what he does." The applause started as a ripple and swelled into a wave. People were nodding. The mayor was clapping his hands high in the air. Ray looked beatific, soaking it in, his chest expanding. I waited. I let the applause crest. I let Ray take his small, humble bow. I let the moment reach its absolute peak of perfection for him. Then, I stood up. I didn't rush. I pushed my chair back with a deliberate scrape that cut through the fading clapping. I walked toward the steps of the stage. Aunt Denise and Cousin Mark moved with me, silent shadows in the periphery, but I ascended the stairs alone. Ray saw me coming. His smile didn't waver, but his eyes tightened. He thought I was coming up to hug him. He thought I was part of the show. He reached out an arm to welcome me into the circle of his success. "And here she is. Folks," he said into the mic, "my daughter." I walked past his outstretched arm. I stepped up to the podium. The microphone smelled of stale breath and metallic heat. I looked out at the room. I saw the board treasurer, a man named Mr. Gopnik, sitting in the front row. I saw the Hendersons. I saw the faces of people who had trusted Ray with their community funds because he sounded like a man who knew how to handle money. I took a breath. The air in the room felt suspended, fragile. "I am proud of hard work," I said. My voice was not loud, but it was clear. The speakers amplified the tremor I fought to suppress, making it sound like steel. Ray's smile faltered. He took a half step toward me. "I worked 5 years to pay down my debts." I continued. "I worked nights. I ate cheap food. I saved every dollar. I know the value of money because I earned it." I turned to look at Ray. He was staring at me, his face a mask of confusion and dawning alarm. "But I will not stand here and let anyone claim credit for providing for me," I said. When they actually stole from me to pay their own debts, the silence that followed was absolute. It was a vacuum. The clinking of silverware stopped. The hum of the air conditioner seemed to roar. Ray laughed. It was a wet, nervous sound. He moved quickly, closing the distance between us. He wrapped his arm around my shoulders, squeezing hard, too hard. It was a vice grip disguised as an embrace. Okay, he said into the microphone, chuckling. "I think someone has had a little too much champagne. Sweetheart, this isn't the time for jokes." He tried to turn me away from the podium, to guide me off stage with the force of his body weight. He was banking on the social contract. He was banking on the fact that women are trained not to make scenes, that daughters do not humiliate fathers in public, that the audience would be too uncomfortable to intervene. I didn't yield. I planted my feet. I stepped out from under his arm. I moved with a sharp, fluid motion that broke his grip. "I am not joking. Ray," I said, "and I haven't had a drop to drink." I reached into my clutch. I pulled out the folded packet of papers. Aunt Denise stepped forward from the side of the stage. She took the stack of duplicate packets from her oversized purse and began walking down the front row. She handed one to Mr. Gopnik. She handed one to the mayor. She handed one to Bill Henderson. "What is this?" Ray snapped. His voice wasn't projected anymore. He had stepped back from the mic, but the room was so quiet, everyone heard him. I looked at Mr. Gopnik, who was putting on his reading glasses. "What you are holding is a transaction history from Lakewood Heritage Bank, notarized yesterday." I said into the microphone. I began to read. I didn't look at Ray. I looked at the audience. On June 2nd, a payroll deposit of $14,200 was made to the joint account I share with my stepfather. This money was my annual bonus from Crestmore Clinical Solutions. Ray lunged for the mic. "Lucy, stop this. You are embarrassing your mother." Cousin Mark stepped onto the stage. He didn't touch Ray. He just stood between Ray and me. Mark was 6'3" and built like a vending machine. Ray stopped. I continued reading. On that same day, June 2nd, beginning at 10 p.m., a series of unauthorized transfers began. $3,400, $1,800, $5,200. Mr. Gopnik was flipping the pages. I saw his eyebrows shoot up. These funds were routed to an external account labeled Halston Consulting LLC. I said, "Ray Halston told us this was an investment firm. He told you he was a consultant." I paused. Public records show that Halston Consulting LLC was registered on May 16th to a mailbox rental at the Pack End Ship on Orchard Road. It has no clients. It has no revenue. It exists solely as a pass-through entity. Ray was red in the face now. He was sweating profusely. He shouted over Mark's shoulder, "This is a misunderstanding. She authorized it. She is bad with money. I had to move it to a safe bucket or she would have blown it on shoes." The crowd murmured. The incompetent daughter defense. It was a classic. I turned the page in my hand. If I authorized it. "Ray," I said, my voice cutting through his shouting, "then why did the bank trace the funds from your consulting firm directly to a merchant ID labeled DHS Recovery Services?" Ray went pale. The redness drained out of him as if someone had pulled a plug. DHS Recovery Services specializes in collecting delinquent personal liabilities. I said, court judgments, old tax liens, child support arrears. I looked at the neighbors. He didn't invest my money. He didn't save it for the family. He washed it through a fake company to pay off a debt he has been hiding from his wife for years. He used my labor to clean his record. Lies, Ray screamed. He pushed against Mark, but Mark didn't budge. She is lying. She is mentally unstable. Ask her mother. Marianne, tell them. Ray pointed a shaking finger at the table where Marianne sat. Marianne, tell them how she is. Tell them we discussed this. The room turned to look at my mother. Marianne was trembling. She looked small in her silver dress, a shimmering ornament that had suddenly been asked to speak. I looked at her. I didn't say anything. I had given her the choice. Marianne stood up. She held onto the table for balance. She looked at Ray, who was panting on the stage, his face twisted in a mask of desperation and rage. She looked at me, standing behind the protection of my cousin. Holding the papers that proved I wasn't crazy, she opened her mouth. Her voice was a whisper. I can't hear you. Marianne, Ray shouted. Tell them the truth. Marianne took a breath. She straightened her spine. I didn't know, she said. Her voice was small, soft, but it carried to every corner of the silent room. I didn't know about the consulting company. She said, I didn't know about the debt, and I never authorized you to take Lucy's money. Ray looked like he had been shot. Marianne, he pleaded, baby, don't do this. They are confusing you. No, Marianne said. She picked up her purse. You told me she was unstable. You told me you were protecting her, but you were just protecting yourself. The sound of a chair scraping back broke the tension. Mr. Gopnik stood up. He was a man who took his role as treasurer very seriously. He held the packet I had given him in one hand. Ray. Mr. Gopnik said. His voice was cold. I think you need to step down from the podium. Ray stared at him. Excuse me? Mr. Gopnik held up the papers. If these transaction logs are accurate, and they appear to be notarized, then you have committed financial fraud. And if you have done this with your own family's accounts, the Civic Association cannot allow you access to our treasury. Ray looked around the room. He saw the judgment. He saw the disgust. The Hendersons were whispering. The mayor was looking at his phone, probably texting his PR aide. The stage he had built was collapsing under his feet. Ray's face changed. The charm evaporated. The good provider mask dissolved into something ugly and raw. You ungrateful little brat, he hissed, lunging toward me again. Mark put a hand on his chest and shoved him back. Ray stumbled, catching himself on the podium. I ruined you? Ray screamed, his voice cracking. I saved you. I put a roof over your head. I paid for the groceries you ate. You owed me that money. He was shouting into the microphone now, broadcasting his meltdown. You think you are so smart with your spreadsheets? You lived in my house for 18 months. You think that is free? That bonus was mine. It was back rent. It was interest on the investment I made in you. I leaned into the mic one last time. $14,000 is expensive rent for a room in a house you don't even own. Ray, I said. Ray slammed his fist onto the podium. I have the emails, he shouted. I have proof. I have an email where you said I could take it. I will show them. I shook my head. You have a dual authorization log that shows you added the external link at a kiosk on a Sunday morning while I was eating pancakes. I said, you can forge an email. Ray, you can't forge a bank timestamp. I turned to the audience, and last night, at 9:30 p.m., Ray transferred $500 back into the joint account with the memo, bonus return. I held up my phone, showing the screenshot to the front row. If the money was his, why did he start paying it back the moment he realized I had the records? Ray stared at the phone. He looked at the packet in Mr. Gopnik's hand. He looked at Marianne, who was walking toward the exit. Someone in the back of the room spoke up. It was a loud baritone voice. I think we should call the police. Ray flinched. The word police seemed to snap the last tether of his control. Do not call the police, he shrieked. This is a family matter. This is my house. You people don't know what it takes to keep a lifestyle like this. You don't know the pressure." He was unraveling. He was confessing by justifying. I stepped back from the podium. I was done. The audit was complete. The deficit was exposed. I walked down the stairs. Mark stayed on the stage, keeping himself between Ray and the crowd until I was clear. I walked to the back of the room where Marianne was waiting. She was shaking, tears streaming down her face, ruining her makeup. "Let's go." "Mom," I said. She looked at Ray, who was now arguing with Mr. Gopnik and the mayor, his hands waving wildly, his face purple. "Where are we going?" she whispered. "Anywhere but home," I said. We walked out into the humid night air. The heavy wooden doors of the community hall swung shut behind us, muffling the sound of Ray's shouting. The parking lot was dark and quiet. The crickets were singing. I took a deep breath. It didn't smell like victory. It smelled like rain coming. We got into my car. Aunt Denise and Mark came out a moment later. "He is causing a scene," Denise said, breathless. "The police are on their way. The treasurer called them. They want to file a report about the association funds too, just in case." I nodded. He probably tried to move those too. I looked at Marianne in the passenger seat. She was staring out the window at nothing. "I am sorry." "Mom," I said. She shook her head slowly. "Don't be," she whispered. Her voice sounded broken, but there was a new thread of steel in it. "Do not be sorry. You saved me." I started the car. We drove out of the lot, leaving the Briar Glen Community Hall behind. I knew this wasn't over. Tomorrow there would be lawyers. There would be restraining orders. There would be the messy, agonizing process of untangling Marianne's finances from the wrecking ball of Ray's schemes. He would fight us. He would lie. He would produce his forged emails and claim I was the villain. But he wouldn't win. Because I had the timestamps, I had the merchant IDs, and I had my mother back. I drove toward the highway, watching the rearview mirror until the lights of the hall disappeared. I was $14,200 poorer than I had been a month ago. I was tired. I was homeless. But as I merged onto the interstate, watching the road open up in front of me, I realized I was finally truly solvent. I had paid the price of admission to the truth, and it was worth every penny. Thank you so much for listening to Lucy's story. It is a hard road to walk when the people who are supposed to protect you turn into the ones you need protection from. But sometimes, the only way out is to stop being polite and start printing the receipts. I would love to hear from you in the comments. Where are you listening from today? Have you ever had to deal with a family member who crossed the line with your finances? How did you handle it? If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more tales of justice, karma, and taking back control, please make sure to subscribe to Revenge Stories. We have new episodes coming every week, and you won't want to miss the next one. Until then, keep your records straight, keep your passwords secure, and never let anyone tell you that family means letting them steal your peace. Stay safe, everyone.